Yeah, here we are for the top 8 of the Poplot Super Series here at Games Den. We have the quarterfinals here with Jackson Miller against Will McDonald.
Will gets a choice whether to be on the play or the draw. He was higher in seeding, not by much, it was 4th and 5th. They're currently just looking over each other's deck lists and getting some Oracle text. Jackson, quite a well-known Zoo player.
Yep.
We go through this every time. He's playing some very unique cards. He's taken a different build, a different take on Zoo this time. Something he said he did for the meta, and because Arlen Quad was underperforming, we'll grab the deck list soon. We're going to walk you guys through them and what their sideboard options are. Daniel, how do you think this matchup's going to play out?
I think Jackson's pretty happy about this one. I think just because his creatures are pretty big, he's not naturally playing islands, and he does have a pretty decent removal suite to deal with key creatures from Will's side. But, I mean, Will could definitely, steal a game pretty quickly. If he is able to sort of go turn 1 Aether Vial into, a great curve. But it should be kind of interesting overall, because it's a really heavily creature-based matchup. So a lot of the stuff is going to be sort of on the board.
I keep saying this, and apparently we did this last time. It's a very interesting matchup.
Yeah, I think a lot of the games could end up looking not that close, but I think that the matchup in general is probably actually pretty close when it comes down to it. It just depends whether Jackson draws sort of a really good mix of creatures and some key removal spells, and then can sort of deploy them all at the right sort of times. And then, yeah, it's going to depend whether Will can just pull off, the perfect curve kind of thing. Because I think if he does that, then it's going to be very difficult for Jackson to keep up. But we'll see.
Just taking a look at some opening hands now. On Will's side, we've got Double Island, Master of Waves, Spreading Seas, Lord of Atlantis, Silvergill Adept, and Curse Catcher. On Jackson's side, he's just resolving some questions now, and we're just going to wait to see his hand. As far as I can see, I think Will's keeping.
Sure, so we see a pretty good hand from Will, and I think Master of Waves is actually a pretty big card in this matchup. If Will is able to stick a few threats on the board and resolve a big Master of Waves, I could see it being really huge, because Jackson only has the Path to Exiles, I imagine, to remove it. I'm not sure whether he's playing Dromoka's Command this time.
I don't believe so.
Yeah. Okay.
Jackson's hand looks like it's a Lightning Bolt, a Wild Nicole, Stomping Ground, Arid Mesa, Noble Hierarch, Path to Exile, Collected Company.
That's a pretty good hand from Jackson.
Pretty good.
Because, yeah, he's got the early creature with the Nicodle, some sort of later game punch there with the Collected Company, and some really powerful removal spells. So we'll see how that one plays out. In terms of whether he was playing the Dromoka's commands that we've seen him play before, he is not today. He's gone for a really quite a large version of Zoo this time. He's got a couple of Tireless Trackers in there, sort of standard powerhouse, and he's also chosen to run a couple of Thundermaw Hellkites, which is really gives him a really huge punch in the late game, I think.
Yeah.
And because he is running the Thundermaw Hellkites, it looks like he's gone down on Collected Company. He's only running 2 of those now. So, yep. So we just see Will sort of curving out.
Notably, he reveals Master of Waves and not a Lord.
He does, though, yeah.
I think that makes perfect sense. It gives Jack, it's a very poker-esque play.
Sure.
He's not showing Jackson that he has a card that he can play with the set amount of mana.
Mm-hmm.
He's showing him a threat that he should be scared about later on.
Sure.
Master of Waves is pro-red, that's going to be very difficult for Jackson to deal with if he doesn't have those Paths to Exiles. From what we can see from his hand, he's got a couple of them, though.
It'll be interesting to see how this Curse Catcher interacts with the different spells as well.
Yeah.
So we see here that Jackson just immediately goes for Lightning Bolt, getting rid of the Silvergill Adept. Basically just looking to get ahead, I think. I think that's really Zoo's game plan in this matchup, is to get ahead and sort of stay ahead with some removal spells there. Because on average, their creatures alone are just going to be bigger than the fish players, because the fish get really big if there's a whole bunch of lords, but Jackson's really seeking to not let that happen.
Yep. I think Jackson needs to be going for as much board control as possible.
Yep.
As soon as Will amasses 2 or 3 creatures featuring a lord, he hits like a truck.
Yep.
If he pairs that with a spreading seas, there's almost nothing that Jackson's going to be able to do to get around it.
Sure.
I think Jackson's really lucky. He can make some really sweet tempo plays. He can end of turn collected company and try and manage everything at sorcery speed as opposed to having to tap out at instant speed.
Yep.
At sorcery speed, which Will has to do a lot of the time without an Aether Vial.
Yeah. And we see that everything is sequenced out really quite nicely for Jackson here. He was able to play that Lightning Bolt on turn 2 and then still use all of his mana by playing a Noble Hierarch, which then lets his Wild Nacotl get in for 4 points, which is pretty big, as well as bringing him much closer to, deploying that Collected Company. We see Will play a Spreading Seas, just cutting off, it looks like red mana, is it? From Jackson's side.
I must say, they planned the expeditions really well for not being able to
they look really good in person.
I think he's cut him off from green mana. I believe we've got some red
okay. Yep.
Green mana obviously being a little more essential, but I think cutting him off red mana, while it's not possible to do on the specific board state, would be a lot more effective because he's got that Noble Hierarch, and Will doesn't have many ways to deal with creatures in the main.
And
especially since it's not that, it's not tapping.
If you're able to ever lock a Lightning Bolt in your opponent's hand in this matchup, it seems so huge. Will getting down that Aether Vial. Unfortunately, that coming on sort of turn 3, which I think is, very awkward at that point. Just because it's not going to have the ability to sort of double your mana like it sort of does if you play it on turn 1.
It's going to mean that in 4 turns, if he doesn't make that land drop, which is possible, he's going to get a Master of Waves. It's going to mean that a turn or 2 is going to be able to get some instant speed lords. But having an instant speed lord is good, but not when you don't have a board presence. He's got a Curse Catcher here, which is going to prevent Jackson doing a lot of damage, especially since his mana is handicapped severely by blue. And Jackson's not on like Bansu. He's not pulling a Geist of Centraft out of someone. He just doesn't play blue. Noble Hierarch is just a very convenient card to have for your mana. Luckily, there's not much Will can violin on 1. Everything's going to be able to beat in. Wild Nacotl's a 1/1. I think Jackson still has a shot at winning this if he draws into a land. But
this is sort of the awkward position here because Jackson has been so heavily cut off of coloured mana, but he still sort of has a decent amount of mana. So if he is able to draw sort of 1 more land, he can sort of probably explode onto the board kind of thing with Collected Company, or basically any land in his deck, letting him cast pretty much everything in his deck.
So Master of Waves going to come down, trigger on the stack. He's going to attempt to path it. In response, Will's going to Phantasmal Image, copying a copy of Master of Waves, since Curse Catch is a little bit ineffective since he's got access to 2 mana.
Okay, so...
I mean, Jackson shouldn't be too upset. It's taken a Master of Waves away from Will, but at the same time, this is a little bit heavy. It's going to trigger for quite a bit since it has the Spreading Seas for 2 more pips.
This is a very sort of awkward sequence of events there. Obviously, those lands that aren't able to produce coloured mana are still able to pay for things like Curse Catcher. So Curse Catcher not really doing anything there. But the way it's played out, Will is still going to end up with a really large number of elementals when all is said and done. It'll just sort of depend whether...
If Jackson does have like a spell that can target it in any shape, way or form, he's not going to be able to violin a lord to keep them alive or anything like that.
So we see a second Path to Exile here, and that's just going to take care of all of those. So
Phantasmal Image obviously sacrificed upon target, so he doesn't get that additional land.
We do see another Master of Waves though in Will's hand, I think. So I feel like we might be going into another turn here where we see a similar thing.
With the way that that Will's hand played out, taking over Jackson's mana base. If a Master of Waves does stick, it's going to be really hard for Jackson to win. All of his threats are on the ground. He does play a couple of Thundermaw Hellkites.
Yep.
But he's in no position to be casting them.
Yeah, that's very much the case. He just doesn't have the requisite mana to cast one of those powerful dragons at this point. And we see a Lord coming down first, just increasing the number of blue devotion. So we just get more elementals. So we're looking at here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elementals. And with Jackson already having used 2 Path to Exiles, it's going to be really difficult for him to deal with this Master of Waves, I think. He really has to draw one of those 2 Path to Exiles, because I don't think he has any other way to interact.
Lightning Bolt? Oh,
yeah.
Pro-Red.
Pro-Red, like he can get rid of an individual elemental with Lightning Bolt, but yeah, he's not going to be able to deal with that Master unless he draws one of those 2 paths.
It's a lot of tokens.
It is, and this is sort of the interesting position here with Master of Waves. Obviously a bit slower, so if Jackson was able to get even slightly more aggressive on one of these turns, it would have probably meant that Will would basically be dead to a Lightning Bolt here, but instead we see that Will has sort of stabilized on 7 life, and Jackson's realistically not going to have a whole lot of ways to get through damage at this point with his creatures, I don't think, before Will is able to sort of get through enough damage on his side.
I mean, his Voice of Resurgent attacks for 4, but that's just...
Yeah, but it just gets chump blocked by a token, right?
It gets double blocked, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can do the double block. It just depends whether you want to give him the token from Voice.
Ooh, popping Spreading Seas.
Yep, so Qasali Pridemage unlocking some of that mana. Okay. Which this means that the Wild Nakottles are back to their 3/3 selves.
It's a start. I don't think this game is going to be very, very easily won for either of them. I think if he'd done that a turn ago, it would have just Jackson would have scooped.
I mean, how much damage is this here? With 1 Lord, it's 2, 5,
Well,
8.
He can block the tokens because they're elementals, not merfolk.
Yeah, I wasn't counting the elementals. That's just from the fish right now. And then the tokens swing in. He blocks 3 tokens and 3 more get through. So it's just lethal,
10
right?
Damage. Yeah, it's 10 unblockable damage.
Yep. So we see a big attack. And... Yep, Jackson just scoops it up.
And I guess see, it's game 2 between Jackson Miller and Will McDonald. Let's have a look at their sideboards. Jackson's side features 2 Blood Moon, 2 Thalia, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Volcanic Fallout, a Thron, 2 Hushwing Griff, a Spellskite, a Choke, a Crumbling Crumble to Dust. He's written Crumbling to Dust here. And an Angel's Grace. Go.
Angel's Grace. Okay, that's some spicy tech. I don't know that it's for this
Chatted with
matchup,
him
but...
earlier. He said it was specifically for Ad Nauseam because
Sure.
it was basically an insta-kill.
Sure. Volcanic Fallout is one of those cards which can be great in this matchup, or it can be completely terrible.
So I mean, it's great, but at the end of the day, it's still only 2 damage.
Yeah.
I've been on, a blue-red deck before, and I've been like, Anger of the Gods isn't really hot here on turn 5.
Yeah, so it's that one's a little awkward. Hushwing Griff, though, could be interesting. It depends how big of a deal Master of Waves actually is in the matchup. Obviously, it played a huge role in that game, but just whether it is actually the defining card, I could see bringing those in. Choke, obviously, being pretty great.
Neck-breaking. I think Hushwing Griff's going to be great just as having some air.
That's true. It is also just a flyer.
It's a Coco hit. Jackson's playing 2 of those. But... I mean, as we saw there, the board bricked out pretty quickly. Unlike Will, Jackson doesn't have unblockability. He doesn't have that kind of attack. So he has to go in the air. Kessie Gulfront, of course, if he gets that going with a really big guy, but
yeah, that's what we didn't see from Jackson's deck there, was sort of Knight of the Reliquary or something like that, one of his sort of larger threats, which is able to grow to a size where Kessie Gulfront would get through. And it goes and finds the Kessie Gulfront as well. Blood Moon could be interesting to shut down the Mutavaults, but I think it might be a little bit
Cavern
too
of Souls,
deep.
and any like Manamo cards.
Yep.
But I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
Taking a specific look into Will's mana base, he has one Manamo and 2 caverns and then 12 islands. And 4 Mutavaults. So if he gets choked, unless his draw has turned out a specific way, it's gonna be horrific for him to deal with.
Yeah, choke's a really tough one. Blood Moon probably not good enough, just shutting down the Mutavaults. In terms of what Will has, he has 2 Dispels, 2 Tidebinder Mages, 2 Vapor Snag, 2 Relic of Progenitus, 1 Kira, Great Glass Spinner, 1 Echoing Truth, and 4 Hurkyl's Recall.
I don't think you should bring in the Hurkyl's Recall.
No, I don't think I don't think this is the matchup for Hurkyl's Recall.
Okay.
I do think it's the matchup for Tidebinder Mage, though.
Absolutely.
That card seems great.
This deck is literally red and green,
Yes.
slashing white.
Kira could also be good, just as a way to protect his threats against Path to Exile, Lightning Bolt type effects. I could see Vapor Snag working in certain situations, but it's a little awkward. Same thing with Echoing Truth.
I think you bring in Echoing Truth.
Yeah, Echoing Truth is one of those cards where, like, Jackson is playing a bunch of 4-ofs of his creatures, so there is a very real possibility that you'll bounce 2 things with it, but
Can also hit a choke.
it's kind of, yeah, that's true. But it kind of, it's one of those cards where it lets you push for the win when you're sort of on the board. So I'm not sure if it sort of falls in that category of maybe being a little like win more in the matchup. And then Dispel could be good because, again, it answers the removal spells. It also answers Collected Company, which is probably one of the best cards in Jackson's deck. So, yeah. Sort of interesting to see that Will has chosen the Dispels over, say, like Negate or additional Spell Pierces.
Yeah.
He's got 2 Spell Pierces in the main.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think, specifically for Volcanic Fallout, it's a little bit better, but...
yeah, I mean, Volcanic Fallout can't be countered. So...
We can flash back to that time I tried to counter a Pearl Lake Ancient when I was about to cast my own.
Yeah.
We didn't announce our top 8 today, so we've got Ben Tudman, Henry Sams. We've just found out that Henry has beaten Ben 2-0.
Wow.
So we've obviously got Will McDonald and Jackson Miller. We're going to game 2 there. Alvin Catan and Anthony Tran. We've got Elves versus Affinity, respectively. Nicholas Lever versus Robert Liu. Nicholas on Soul Sisters / Thug Life.
Yes.
And Rob is on Jump. Very vanilla Jump.
Yeah, his chosen deck name being Thug Life.
Well, I was just like, what would you call your deck? Because, it looks like Soul Sisters. And you're just like, I like to call it Thug Life. I'm like, I'm really happy for you.
I mean, I can get with that. Like, there is a lot of life game in there. It is pretty thug. Like, Norin is basically a thug, I think.
Norin's basically untouchable. Where is it Staticoster at?
Players just looking at their hands here. I think we've got some keeps. We're just going to grab some hands from spotters down at the table. And then we'll head into the game.
Okay. So on Jackson's side, there's a Collected Company, double Hierarch, double Path, an Arid Mesa, and a Volcanic Fallout.
Okay, that's an interesting hand there, but I suppose he knows that you can't really answer the Noble Hierarchs coming from Fish, so they're reasonably safe. But it could be a pretty slow hand, and Volcanic Fallout's also going to be pretty awkward for him to ever cast.
Yes,
So
you are correct.
yeah, we'll see how that one goes.
On Will's side, we've got a Silvergill Adept, a Harbinger, a Spreading Seas, Triple Island, Mutavault. A slower start, but I think unless Jackson's making that land drop, Spreading Seas is going to get a very good deal out of things.
Yeah, Spreading Seas could really crimp Jackson's ability to cast any spells.
And I think if like Jackson goes no second land, play another Hierarch, Echoing Truth would be really good.
I think that was a land, though. Perhaps it was not. Perhaps it was a full art Lightning Bolt. But
Why didn't
yep,
he attack?
it was.
Oh, he's got a Path to Exile. Sure. If
Yep.
only it was a wear tip. Girl can dream.
and we see Will playing a Mutavault and then Spreading Seas.
That is really harsh. So obviously Jackson does have 2 other sources, but when he's sitting on cards like Lightning Bolts, Volcanic Fallouts, you'd rather a Blood Moon effect.
Yeah, but I mean, that's sort of the thing here. He really doesn't want to cast Volcanic Fallout in this game.
No. He needs those 0/1s / the current 1/2.
Yeah, he's getting in for 2 points with Noble Hierarch there. The Noble Hierarch beat team right here. Going from 20 to 0 with 2 Noble Hierarchs.
I'm going to see a turn 2 Aether Vial. Yep.
Turn 3 Aether Vial,
Sorry, yes.
So turn 3 is apparently the turn that
Better
Will
late
is
than
going to
never.
be playing his Aether Vials this game.
Another Spreading Seas, double protection. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Okay, Harbinger of the Tides comes down, tries to bounce the Noble Hierarch that had attacked.
Jackson says, no, I'm going to get a land out of this deal.
Yeah, Jackson says, I will path my own Noble Hierarch rather than
Awkwardly,
bounce
he
it to
has
my
to get
hand.
a forest and not a mountain. Like,
Yep.
right, like you'd love to bolt that Harbinger.
Yes, I think you would. This is...
Yeah. I don't see myself getting not a forest there unless, you know, it's filled up with like Knight of the Reliquaries and Loxodon and Smiters and stuff.
So we see Jackson draw. We'll see if he hits the land drop. Because a land would enable Collected Company, but no, it looks like he hasn't managed to hit that land drop. Just passes the turn,
Yep.
leaving up his 2 mana.
Would you have mulliganed that hand? The 1 land?
It's really tough. I think I would have, just because I think I want to be more proactive than that hand sort of allowed you to be. I think you just need more threats than what it had. It had a few pieces of removal. The mana is slow, but if you draw it 1 land in the first couple of draw steps, it sort of pans out. But it's just really threat light, which I think you're just going to fall behind. And as I was sort of saying in the first round, I think Zoo's game plan is really to get ahead and stay ahead. Less than sort of, you know, claw back from behind.
When does Jackson need to be drawing these next couple of turns to get back into this game? Is it just lands?
He needs a land, and then to resolve Collected Company.
Sure.
I
Just
think.
pray for no Curse Catcher or Spellpierce.
Yeah, basically that's it. He needs to hit a land, and then will not have a way to interact with Collected Company. And then the Collected Company has to hit pretty decently. I don't think if you just get like a 2-drop and like another Hierarch or something like that, it's really going to do much for you.
Yeah.
You really have to be hitting, you know, a couple of your 3-drops, I think. Okay, so Jackson has found mana, but it is another Noble Hierarch.
It's sorcery speed, and he's gonna have to wait until his next untap step to be able to get a company out there.
Yeah, it's sort of like, you know, a suspend land at this point.
So Anthony Tran has beaten Alvin Catan 2-0 with Affinity versus Elves.
Fair enough. But yeah, we just see Will sort of just developing his board out sort of slowly but steadily here. If he's able to play a Lord this turn, he can get in for an immense amount of damage because his 3 fish and then activating the Mutavault, that's going to crunch for a really large amount. And if he was able to play a Lord and then violin another one, it's really going to put Jackson to the test to say, like, do you have a removal spell for this Lord, or are you basically going to die? We see Will going for an attack without playing a Lord, but having the opportunity to potentially vial one in. Jackson goes for the Path to Exile, just getting rid of the Mutavault. Players seem to be discussing something. I'm not sure if it's to do with the sort of sequencing here, or how much damage is being taken, where they are in phases.
We
and
do
things
have a
like that.
scorekeeper in there just keeping life totals so that there aren't any disputes like that.
Yep. Okay, looks like it was resolved. Jackson just taking 5 there. Will didn't search off of the path, so I'm not quite sure what happened. He did pass the turn, but we see Jackson playing a choke here. Unfortunately, because Will is sort of ahead on board by such a substantial amount already, the choke is really going to struggle to make a big difference. If Jackson is able to untap and then play something which sort of stabilizes the board, and he dodges a Lord from Will, then the choke will make a big difference.
So I just walked into the room and Will looked at me and he's like, yeah, I missed the path to Excel trigger, and that's what they were discussing.
Yeah, fair. I have been there before, so I can understand that. But yeah, I was just saying that I don't know how much choke is really going to do in this game. Jackson still basically needs to untap and Collected Company and the two big things to stabilize the board.
I mean, given the choice between casting a Collected Company and a choke there, it's really close. But I mean, like his island doesn't untap.
It doesn't. He cuts Will off a mana, but at this point, like the average casting cost of Will's deck is low enough that, and he's head enough on board that basically getting to cast like one more spell is probably just going to be enough. Yeah, Master seems pretty good
I think
here.
Like because Jackson had so much on board that could be given Isla. Like Aether Vial is untapping. Aether Vial is ready to cast a Master at some point, right? I think because of how that laid out, like I don't think Jackson was in the best position to be fighting back if he was casting a choke. I think you need to be playing.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of it. Like Will was just ahead enough on board that choke really doesn't bother him. Like it could come back to bite him if Jackson sort of plays a land, paths the Master, and then resolves a Collected Company. Because it seems like Will doesn't have a Lord. Like he's declined playing the Lord enough times now. He just doesn't have one, I don't think.
Yeah, he's had enough times to vial it in without having to hold anything up since effectively Jackson's been tapped out a lot. But yeah, I think Jackson stumbled really hard. Will punished him for it, and then when Jackson tried to fight back, it wasn't enough. I think you'd be needing to look into something like untap Company into Reflector Mage to start getting ahead on this board state. And as we've spoken before, Jackson doesn't play any blue. That was your first mistake, buddy.
Okay, so we see play an island. Crack my island Lotus Petal for blue. Vapor Snag, Noble Hierarch. Just cutting off
blockers.
Potential. Yeah, it's both a blocker and potential like Collected Company in combat.
Did he not just? Why wouldn't you? Oh! He brought it in. He brought it in. That's
okay. I buys him a turn. Like
technically, yes. Technically, he has not lost the game yet. He needs miracles like Terminus to come off the top of his deck for this one, though.
Yeah, he does, just because the way his lands had sort of worked out there, he couldn't even Volcanic Fallout, because if you look at the board, Volcanic Fallout actually would have swept everything away apart from Master of Waves.
Yep.
It would have left Will with nothing, just because he...
I mean, that was not as interesting as we would have liked to see. Will McDonald does win 2-0. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back with our top 4. We haven't yet found out our last top 8 matches results, but we'll find out and we'll let you know once we do.